from the perspective of the United States of America, this is a pretty momentous moment with regard to our ongoing efforts to advance Kosovo's integration into European and Euro-Atlantic structures and to take its place, the Western Balkan sovereign independent state. This interim agreement that is being worked on, the implementation is being negotiated in Ohrit this weekend, we consider this to be a very important step forward. And we think agreement, a complete agreement is within reach. We believe that this agreement, the 11 points that have been agreed, the implementation annex that is under negotiation, brings real benefits, practical and political and economic. So I want to be clear, the actual 11 points, those are not being negotiated. What is being negotiated is an annex that will talk about the critical issue of how to implement these principles and how to do so effectively. And that's our key focus, a successful and effective implementation. I've got to be clear, the United States does not assess that a better deal is available at this time or is out there at this time. This is a significant step forward. It's an extraordinary opportunity. It advances regional stability. It repositions the Kosovo-Serbia relationship to a much better status quo. It is an interim agreement, and the United States stands strongly behind and with a position we've maintained for years, that we do look for an ultimate final agreement that is eventually centered on mutual recognition. We do understand some of the concerns that have been raised, and we believe it is very important that the association contribute to the good functioning of the Kosovan state and society rather than detract from it. So we've been clear. We do not believe it is appropriate for Kosovo to agree to anything that would be in contradiction with Kosovo's constitution. We do not believe it's appropriate for Kosovo to put in place something that is not consistent with the 2015 Constitutional Court decision. Those are some guidelines. But within that space, there's a decent amount of room for what this thing will be. Our hope is that both through this process this weekend and on the subsequent action by the government, this will move forward because we think it's a very important element to repositioning the Kosovo-Serbia relationship, having this new, more stable, more positive status quo, but it also helps Kosovo be more successful in being what it is, a multi-ethnic democratic state that has provisions and structures in place that protect the rights of all of its citizens, including citizens from minority communities. Issues related to national, ethnic minorities in countries are sensitive throughout Europe, but there's also a lot of positive experience throughout Europe of how you can do this in a way that both addresses the concerns of the minority community, who wants to ensure that there is respect for their culture and their traditions and their national kind of interests in some ways as an ethnicity, but also ensure the good functioning of a state, right? And I believe Mr. Lajčák has given to the parties what I would just call examples as food for thought, to be inspired. You've seen some of them, we've talked about some of them. I remember many, many years ago working in Croatia, people often talked about the model of the Åland Islands. We've had recent work here with people sharing the experience of Sud Tirol, for example, but there are many others. I don't think this is meant to supplant, I don't think this is meant to follow this exact model, because every case is a little bit different, but it is to show principles and opportunities and effective means of doing this challenging thing. I have had the opportunity in the last few days to talk to leadership of both the PDK and the LDK, and the AAK for that matter, as well as the President and the Prime Minister, in my efforts to kind of, on behalf of the United States, also do everything possible to support a successful outcome in Ohrit. I've watched the current opposition parties in Kosovo over a number of years in a number of different circumstances. And I would say that at the end of the day, the parties that are currently opposition, when they have had differences or concerns, have ultimately put the national interests of the Republic of Kosovo ahead of any domestic political considerations. And I would anticipate they would do the same in this case as well. I do not see reference in this basic agreement to formal de jure recognition of Kosovo. So I'm not sure I can talk about this sequence. All I can say is this is where we are and the positives that come from where we are. And I can also say there's this longer-term view that there will ultimately need to be mutual recognition between these two countries, but when that will happen and under what conditions, it's difficult for me to say right now. The United States position is clear, and it has been, and it will be, and I do not see it changing. But we do have to deal with the moment we are in, and I think the reality is for a variety of factors, but largely due to decisions being made by the leadership in Serbia. The likelihood of achieving mutual recognition at this time is not very high. And the need for a new status quo, a repositioned Kosovo-Serbia relationship that contributes more to greater regional stability and allows Kosovo to move forward in so many ways is both achievable and important. Achieving agreement reduces the risk of these flashpoints and the quantity of these flashpoints and the consequences of these flashpoints. So our focus in Ohrit is this agreement. If this agreement is reached, then you could very well have the conditions so that all parties participate in elections on the 23rd of April. That would be our hope. We would very much welcome the Serbs participating in those elections, and we would very much welcome those elections being held in conditions of security, dignity, in which democratic processes go forward. I can't speak to what will actually happen. We got to get through Ohrit. We got to get through this agreement. But that remains our hope. And I think I'll leave that there for now. We will all have to take stock after Ohrit and what that means in terms of next steps on a number of different things, but including the scheduled April 23rd elections for the 4 northern municipalities.